short years just using this simple plan. Here's what we're going to cover: why most young adults get stuck in the debt trap, how real estate actually builds wealth over time, the equity advancer mortgage, which is a mortgage you can use as a equity creating engine, and you can take that equity and put it into your first rental property. We're going to discuss the DSCR loan, which is going to be the loan you use to purchase your first rental property. And at the end, I'm going to give you a simple step-by-step blueprint so you can do this. Here's the money reality for young adults. The average new car payment is $748 a month. The average used car payment is $530 a month. The average credit card balance is $6,700. And the average credit card interest rate is 20 to 23%. It will take 30 years to pay the credit card off if you make only the minimum payments. And over that time, you'll pay $13,000 in interest. Credit cards, high interest rate are yesterday's purchases. Lifestyle inflation. What it means is the more you make, the more you spend. And the end result for doing all of these things above is you're going to be left with no money. Here's the cost of normal choices. A $750 a month car payment over 5 years equals $45,000 paid out. If you invested that same money at 7%, you would have $53,000 after the 5 years, and you could use that towards your first rental property. Small choices in your 20s make for big outcomes in your 30s and 40s. Here are the 4 great pillars of real estate. Number 1, real estate usually appreciates. The value rises over time. Number 2, the principal goes down. Each time you make a monthly payment, the amount you owe gets smaller. 3 is cash flow. Rent income can exceed the amount you're paying on that rental mortgage. And 4 are tax benefits. There are multiple tax benefits that you can take advantage of for rental properties. Historically, U.S. home values have grown 4 to 6% year over year. So if you have a $300,000 home at a 5% annual growth rate, it'll be worth over $1 million in 30 years. You don't have to time the market. You just have to get in the market. The earlier you start, the more compounding works for you. It gives you a lot of leverage, real estate does, because real estate lets you control a large asset with a small amount of money. Here's what I mean. If you have $15,000 to put down, you can control a $300,000 property. If that property increases in value 5%, you've doubled your cash on paper in the first year. Leverage amplifies growth when used responsibly. Renting versus owning in your 20s is a big pitfall that a lot of young people fall into. So if you rent a home for $1,800 a month, you get zero equity and you have zero ownership, and you pay $1,800 a month. If you own it, you pay $800 a month. You build equity and depreciation and tax benefits. 10 years of rent at $1,800 a month is $216,000 you've paid out to the landlord. You paid your landlord's mortgage for 10 years at a tune of $216,000 out of your pocket and into his. 10 years of ownership is far different. You get equity plus rising property value. Your first home should be used as an investment. It's a tool. Think of your first home as an asset, not just a place to live. Use it to build equity quick, not just have a nicer space. The goal is to turn early equity into down payment for your first rental property. This is where the equity advancer strategy comes in. What is an equity advancer? It's a first lien HELOC, home equity line of credit, that replaces a traditional mortgage. It's linked to a checking account used for everyday income and expenses. It sweeps your deposit nightly, so it reduces the balance of your principal on that mortgage every single day. Interest is calculated daily on the reduced balance. Here's how the equity advancer sweep works. You deposit your paycheck into your equity account. Deposits immediately reduce your loan balance, so when your interest is swept that day, the balance on your loan is lower, so you pay less interest. Bills and expenses are paid like any other checking account through the month, and your average daily balance stays lower, less interest paid. The equity advancer versus a traditional mortgage is like this. With a traditional mortgage, you get a fixed payment, interest computed on a scheduled balance. You pay the same amount each month for 30 years. The equity advancer has flexible payments. You can pay interest only, you can pay nothing, you can pay more. You choose how much you want to pay. Your income works for you every single day. You have potential to pay your loan off in 6 to 12 years as opposed to 30. The equity advancer versus the traditional mortgage. Let's look at a few numbers. Okay, 5 years, 30 years. The total principal is the same, $550,000. The total interest paid is $93,000 with the equity advancer, or $734,000 using the traditional mortgage. That's about a $600,000 savings. Total payments are $55,000 or $360,000. Your total expenses at the end, $643,000 for the equity advancer loan and $1.2 million for the traditional mortgage. Here's a really good visual. You're going to pay this mortgage down in about 7 years, my bad, as opposed to the traditional mortgage, it takes you 30 years to pay it down. It's a big difference. Here's how we're going to turn your equity into investment capital. As your balance drops and value rises, equity grows. You can draw on that equity advancer line to access that equity. You can use a portion of that equity as a down payment on your first rental property. You want to keep enough equity to stay liquid. Here's how fast you can build equity. In 12 months, you're going to build $114,000 in equity. We're going to use this to fund our first investment property. We're going to pull part of that out and put into our first investment property using a DSCR loan. What is a DSCR loan? Debt service coverage ratio, which means the loan qualifies based on the property's real income and not your job, not your income, nothing but your credit score, and if the rent covers the mortgage. That's all that matters. It's great for new investors, self-employed, people building multiple rentals. Basically, we're focused on whether the rent can cover the payment. That's it. Pretty simple. The DSCR is simple math. Basically, we're going to take the rent and the payment. We're going to divide the rent by payment. That gives us a ratio of 1.25. All this means is that if the rent covers the payment on the mortgage, then you're going to qualify. If it's even, it's a 1.0 ratio. If it's a little more, then you get a 1.25 ratio. You get what I mean. But basically, the rent just has to cover the mortgage. That's it. For your first rental property, the purchase price is $250,000. The down payment is $50,000, which is 20%, which is what we pulled from the equity advancer loan we talked about earlier. Your rent is $2,000 a month. Your payment is $1,600 a month. So you're going to have positive cash flow of $300 to $400 a month. At age 23, you can buy your first home with the equity advancer. At age 26, use equity to buy your first rental with that DSCR loan. At age 30, you can repeat it every 2 to 4 years. And some people can do it more quickly just based on their financial position. Age 40s and 50s, you're going to have multiple properties and an incredible net worth just by using a simple formula. Here's a potential net worth snapshot. Example, at age 45, you're going to own 4 to 6 properties worth $1.5 to $2 million. Your equity position in those is going to be $600,000 to $1 million. And your rental income from all those properties is funding your lifestyle for future investments. Starting at age 22 versus age 32. Starting earlier gives you an extra decade of compounding, which is more time to pay down loans and ride out market cycles. Easier to add properties gradually over time. Waiting off means playing catch up later. So the sooner you start, the better. But I don't want you to think that 32 is too late to start. It's not. But starting earlier is always better. Here's what you want to do. Your step-by-step blueprint. First and foremost, avoid big car payments and excessive credit card debt. These will kill you. They're not good. You're throwing money away on things that decrease value. They will make you broke. You want to save aggressively for your first home and get in using a good rate. We'll use the equity advancer to get you in your first home and buy your first house. We're going to run your income through that account, control your spending. We're going to build equity over, 1 to 5 years. It says 3 to 5, but I've seen people do it in 1 year. You're going to draw that equity and buy your first DSCR rental, buy your first investment property, repeat the cycle every few years as your finances grow. Here are the biggest mistakes to avoid. Buying a car that eats your investing money, carrying high interest credit card debt long term, buying too much house for your first property, or waiting for the perfect time instead of just starting small. Here's how I can help you. First, I can help you understand if the equity advancer is a good fit for you and your first home. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, this is not a good thing for you. If you're financially responsible and save a little money each month, this is a great option for you to build incredible wealth in a short period of time. We'll run the numbers on DSCR scenarios to see if it makes sense. I'll guide you through the financing as you build your portfolio, and I'll answer your questions as you design your own wealth blueprint. You don't have to be rich to start. Start is how you become wealthy. Use your 20s and 30s to build your assets, not just payments. We can see what your blueprint looks like. Call anytime. I'm here to answer your questions.